So in this video, I'm going to do some rapid prototyping and I'm going to take you along with me in this journey. Let me set some context first. Imagine you're part of a product team of a company that is into e-commerce. Imagine e-commerce stores like Amazon, Zalando, or Flipkart. In such a scenario, one of the main tools that your operations team is going to require is an internal dashboard or an admin dashboard to track all the orders. And the operations team, such as logistics team, delivery team, or cataloging team, any team that is working on the operations part will have to have track of every single order that comes into the system and then goes out of the system. So you need an order management tool. Now, how would you go about building an order management tool for an e-commerce store? So let's explore that. What I have here open is FigJam. It's a whiteboarding tool that you can use. Let me add some heading here and let's call this order management tool. I'll make it a bit extra large. And then you'll go ahead and start out with the basic requirements first. First of all, you have to figure out whether this is an internal dashboard or an external dashboard. So let's talk about what an internal versus external dashboard can be like. On an e-commerce platform like, let's say, Amazon, there are really two ways of looking at it. You have a dashboard that could be serving the sellers, so the sellers can individually track their orders, but you will also need a dashboard for an Amazon employee who wants to track all orders across all sellers. Now, these are those internal dashboards that I'm talking about, where you would need to have an overall or a bird's eye view on all the orders. So we'll focus on that part here, and that's what I'm going to call this as internal dashboard. So let's label this and we'll call it internal dashboard. Now, as you progress in the conversations with your operations team, you will start collecting your requirements. You will start understanding what are the pain points that the operations team is trying to solve. We have to make an assumption that there is some system in place, because if you're already selling the products and you still don't have a dashboard, which means the team is managing somehow. The first thing you would do as a product manager is to understand what the team is actually using and how are they currently tracking the orders. This will not be a huge research because you will also know how they are doing it currently. Let's assume for the sake of simplicity, they are currently managing everything on spreadsheets, which is obviously not a sustainable and scalable way of managing orders, and therefore we now require a dashboard. Now, dashboard in different companies can mean different things. Dashboard is basically giving you an overall view of all things that are happening in your product. It can be order management, it could be transactions, it could be payments, it could be invoices. You could be managing and tracking anything that your product is offering as a service or a feature. Imagine you're in the stakeholder meeting and the operations team has come with all the requirements and features that you would like. How would you go about actually building this? So let's say people start giving you the feature request or the things that they would like to see in a dashboard. And one of the things could be, I want to see list of all orders. So that becomes your topic here. Perfect, sounds valid. This is what we want to do as well. Now, some other person might come and say, well, I want to see the customer details for each order. And the customer details can include address, phone number, contact information, or something like that. So that becomes your next requirement, which is want to see customer details. All right, what next? Now, some other team member might say, it's all good to see all the details, but I would also like to take some actions on the order. And one of the actions could be, I want to mark an order as shipped if it is in the open status, which means now we are seeing two requirements here. The first requirement here is to see the status of an order, which until now nobody had told. So seeing the status of an order is one requirement, and then taking an action on an order is a second requirement. I'm going to just disconnect this, make it a requirement in itself. And let's add the requirement of seeing the status. If you see, within few minutes, we have already built something very basic here. Let's also add the overarching requirement of taking actions on an order. So one of the actions is, of course, marking it as shipped, but you will quickly realize that as you start talking about this particular feature, the actions will increase. So for now, let's say I want to mark an open order as shipped. As the conversation progresses, someone is going to say, can I delete the order? Can I archive an order? Can I cancel an order? All these actions will now become an overarching requirement. So what you can do is add a big requirement here, which says add actions to orders, and then connect the individual ones that you want to do. Now that I've got the main feature here, which is adding actions to orders, I want to know what kind of actions the team wants to take. So one of them is obviously marking an order as shipped, but you could also have something like canceling an order. So let's say I want to cancel an order. And for now, let's keep it to two actions. You could also have delete, you could have archive, you can do multiple actions, but you get the idea. The adding actions to an order is a feature in itself, and then what kind of actions you can take is a flow of that feature, and you would probably need different flows for that. At this point, we'll keep it here. Now, someone might say, well, if the orders are too many, then how do you show it on the screen? So you would definitely need some pagination. Pagination is basically showing a certain amount of orders on one page, and then you go to next page. So the ability to go to the next page is just called pagination, and the paginated results is one of the features that you would have. So let's note down this pagination as a feature. What else? Now, apart from seeing the customer details, you would also like to see the details of an order. So if you click on an order ID, you should be able to see all the details pertaining to that order. For example, the quantity, the details of the product, the specifications. So anything related to that order, you should be able to see it. So not only the customer details, but we now require the order details as well. So let's say view order details. One thing here I want to highlight is that as a product manager, you need not go into the solution space. And what do I mean by solution space? Let's take this actions to the orders feature. Now in here, should this be a drop down? Should this be a button? Should this be an action on each order separately or a common action at the top? Now this is going into the solution space. Your idea is to simply capture what the action should be and what is the action for. So the flow around the action is what you should be capturing. For example, when you mark an order as shipped, there is going to be a downstream effect. So that's going to be part of your product requirement document. When an order is marked as shipped, what happens next? What gets updated? What gets changed? And all of those things have to be accounted for. And that's your job. But how the design element should be is not your job. You have to just capture the requirements. Now, let's say after a few minutes of discussion, someone comes from an accounting team and says, hey, can I also download all these orders based on a certain date filter? So that becomes a new feature here, and you would go ahead and add, let's say, download. Now, in the brainstorming session like this, you would actually go to every single item that is here and go double click on it and start talking about the details of it. You have to draw out the journey of the user as soon as they enter the dashboard and what actions they are taking. Now, that is going to be a bit more detailed. I can also do a follow-up video on that specific topic on how to do the journey mapping or user's journey flow after you have collected all these requirements. After this, there are multiple options that you could choose from. One option is create a one page or document out of this and then go ahead and share it with your stakeholders, get some input, refine your requirements a bit more, and then come back to the stakeholders and then refine it again. The second choice is you can make a PRD, which is product requirement document, straight out from here, talk to your stakeholders, and then develop a PRD from here. The third option is something that I'm going to show you today. You probably need to validate this idea in the first place before getting into the depth of the product development cycle, which is from here you go to design, you go to development and everything else. You may want to do a validation of your idea in the first place. And this is where I feel AI tools are going to help and how I would use this AI tool in the first place. So what I'm going to do now is whatever I have got as requirements, this is your open discussion with the, brainstorm session. I will make a prompt out of this and I will ask one of the AI tools to give me a functioning app. Now I'll come to Lovable, or you can choose Vercel, Bolt, Replit, any of these tools. It doesn't really matter. All of them deliver similar output in that case. And here, this is the time to create a prompt. You have to explain the context as much as possible, but you also do not want to go overboard and keep it very detailed. So the tools are pretty smart these days and they can understand what you mean by dashboard and it will deliver on that particular prompt properly. So let's say what I would write here is create an order management internal dashboard for an e-commerce company. And let's say we are selling electronics, that is selling electronic goods. Now, this is your first line. In the first line itself, you are giving enough context. And the context comes from these keywords like order management internal dashboard. You're also giving the industry, which is e-commerce company selling electronic goods. And you can then say, I want to have following features, and just list down all the features that we got here. Now, here you don't have to be super creative in how do I word this. You can just copy paste literally everything that you've written down here and transform it a little. So let me show you how I would do this. So instead of saying I want to say list of all orders, you can shorten this and you can say list of all orders. You want to see customer details, right? So you want to also see customer details for each order. Then the third one is I want to see status. So show statuses for each order. Now here you would have to specify the statuses if you want to. The tool can also take the liberty to show their own statuses. I'm going to add some statuses just to give you an example. So let's say open, shipped, cancelled. For now, we'll stick to 3. And then we're going to have actions, right? So we now need for each order, I should be able to mark it as shipped and cancel. We got pagination, and we also need to see the order details and download file as well. So let's go ahead and add that. I'm going to do it on the first one, which is list of all orders with paginated results. And then on clicking order ID, I want to see all details of the order. And the last one is option to download the CSV file. And that's it. This is going to be our prompt. What we have done literally is converted our requirements from a very haphazard manner from a sticky notes and whiteboard, and then added a prompt over here. And then let's go ahead and generate this. So while Lovable is working on the output, I want to show you how they think. Now let's see what they're saying here. I'll create a comprehensive order management dashboard for your electronics company, e-commerce company. The design will be inspired by popular admin dashboards like Shopify Admin Panel and Amazon Seller Central featuring. So the example that I give, Amazon, is exactly what they are going to model it after. Now here's the output. So once they have done all this, you can see, and let me close the sidebar here. Now this is the dashboard that you will get. This is much better improvement than the versions that I have seen in the past before. Here you can see on the left hand side, you got orders, dashboard, customers, reports, settings. It's a full-fledged dashboard. And then we have order management. We can search. By the way, we did not ask for search and it gave a search bar. And we did not ask for a filter by status. We did not explicitly ask for filter. We only asked for statuses to be seen on the table here, like the list of orders. And so we got this extra feature here. We also have download CSV, so it adhered to that prompt. And on top of that, it also gave us the overview metrics. So total orders, open orders, shipped orders. It's incredibly useful for an operations team. And then as you can see here, we have pagination. So they're currently showing 1 out of 5 orders, and there will be more paginated results. You can see the statuses, and for each order, what's the amount. You can go ahead and mark it as shipped. So this is the ship icon, and this is the cancel icon. Now, if I click on order ID, I will get the order details. Now, when you see the order details, you will understand what is missing, what is not missing. And then you have this status as open, and you get to see the customer details as well. If you click on view here, you get to see the same order details as well. The same thing you can see as customers. Now, when you click on customers, the customer data will reflect here, and then you'll have probably some bunch of reports. Now, these two sections are not currently loaded because we did not specify anything for this section. Now, this is how I would do the conversation with them. Let's say we want to talk about this table. You will ask the team, is this information sufficient for you to carry out your tasks? So someone might say, I'm able to see the order details, but what about the customer's address? Can I see customer's address? So you click on this and you say, well, we will be able to show customer's details here. So your operations team might see this particular screen and they might say, well, I need some more information. I need to know whether the shipping label is generated. I need to know whether the shipping order is created in another tool. So your order information section now has more details. You will go back to your FigJam, and then you could say in the order details feature, now this becomes your a different feature. You now need to add more information. So I want to see shipping label. Then you might also want to see delivery partner details. Which delivery partner is going to be used for this particular order? I want to see shipping partner details. You have managed to collect the feedback instantly by showing them a prototype. What you have done is actually shortened the loop of feedback that you would have otherwise taken longer time. Remember how they did not think about shipping label and shipping partner details when we were talking in the first time? And so this is what would happen when you are talking to your stakeholders. Most of the features come right after you show them the first designs, and then they would be like, I also need this feature. So let's go ahead and mark this as green here, and this is basically our add-on features now. The next thing you would do is talk to your engineering team using this prototype and ask them the feasibility of it. Now, there are a couple of things that you have to be very careful about when you just load your dashboards with features. Not all features are required or most important, and not all features are feasible in the first iteration. For example, let's talk about this download CSV feature. Now, this feature is probably a nice to have feature, but probably not must have. Now, one of the ways to address that would be, let's say you are going through these features and you ask your team, by the way, do we really need this download CSV file? Now, some members might say it is absolutely necessary. In that case, you have to. What you can also do is quickly label them. So let's say you probably are okay without this feature. You would like to have it, but it's fine if you don't get it in the first version. Take another feature, for example, I want to see shipping partner details. Now, some might say, well, we have a dashboard already with shipping partners, so we don't really need to see it in the first iteration. It may not be super important. So you could do it this way, and then you can also add some plus ones here, which is absolutely necessary. And stuff like that. So this is one way of understanding what is the most important and must have features and what are not the super important features that can be taken out of first iteration. Basis that information, you can come back here and ask your engineers what seems feasible and what does not seem feasible. Now, the reason to do this is sometimes we get carried away and we start adding a lot of features to this particular dashboard. For example, let's look at this report section. Now, the report section is not absolutely necessary. It is going to take more time to build these reports, and there is another way to get the reports in the system. So in this tool, you don't really need the reports. All you have to do is go back to your FigJam board and see if there was a mention of reports and whether it's absolutely necessary or not. If it is not, you're going to simply remove that requirement. Now, here's what I would do. You do a follow-up to Lovable, and now we have identified that we do not need reports in the first version. We are okay to not have download CSV option as well. And maybe let's say customers as a separate list is also not needed. So you can add a follow-up chat here saying remove download CSV feature, reports, and customers from this page. So let's go ahead and follow that up. I want to highlight how AI tools are getting smarter. I mentioned remove download CSV, reports, and customers from this page. It rephrased that and said, I will remove download CSV button, reports tab, and customers tab. Notice how I did not mention tab and button in my original prompt. So you don't have to really worry about the jargon or the words that are supposed to be used when prompting. You can still start with whatever you can and you don't have to be expert. So we now got a refined version here. We don't have customers and reports anymore. Download CSV is gone. It has become much more focused now. Now, who should do this, when you should do it? It all depends on your company and the product development workflow that you have. One of the things that I would recommend is whenever you are having these conversations, have your product designer on board as well, and probably your engineering leader in the same meeting if it's a meeting. But let's say if it's an asynchronous conversation, they are part of that conversation from the beginning itself. The second thing that I would recommend is some of the initial requirements can be vetted just by product manager. You don't really need all your stakeholders in the same conversation. Now, once you have finalized what version should it be like, here's a suggestion I have for you. If you have a product designer on your team, your product designer should probably just get this as a reference, but there is no need to compel them to use the exact same dashboard. Give the liberty to your product design team and let them come up with the solutions. For example, placing a search bar at the very top here may be good from Lovable's perspective, but it is probably not the best choice from your company's perspective. So your work does not stop right here, but you have done the first level, which is taken an idea, translated into something coding and gotten yourself some requirements. Now you know exactly what your operations team is seeking, and you can create a much better and focused one-page document or a product requirement document. I hope this video was helpful for you in some way. I would urge you to go ahead and try these tools out and use rapid prototyping in your workflow to speed up that feedback loop. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching.